Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games I have not played and I'll score them based on how well the store sells it. Since I have no formal journalistic credentials, I feel like I am uniquely qualified to pass judgment on the hard work and dedication of other people. Now, today, as you can see on the screen, we are looking at a game that had won a category from the Game of the Year Awards for Games for Impact. Now, I'm not exactly up to speed on what all the criteria is for this kind of thing, but looking at the trailer and the information for this game, it does look like they really set out to portray something in a vein of storytelling with communities that we don't see a lot of. And it looks like they do so in a way that's portraying folklore and culture that isn't really explored very much in gaming, and it looks like it's done in an incredibly well artistic light with a nice good bend of storytelling and stuff that we will see as we get into the descriptions. So today we are looking at South of Midnight. South of Midnight Unravel the Past is the little tagline they give on there, by Compulsion Games, published under Xbox Game Studios. Now, I haven't looked in a whole lot, but Compulsion Games seems to be no stranger to the gaming industry. They do have quite a few games under their belt, but we're not going to get into much of their history. We want to judge South of Midnight based on its presentation here on the Steam store page. Now, I did double check on the Nintendo Switch store page. It's not available on there, which, I mean, came from Xbox Game Studios. I'm not too surprised. So without wasting too much time on that, we're going to jump straight into the eShops, or the Steam store page. Now, we do have information here about a premium edition, or if you didn't get the premium edition, a premium upgrade, which that's the first thing we're shown here in the store. And it shows that it comes with a digital art book, a digital comic book, the original soundtrack, which you can also purchase separately for the same price as the premium upgrade. At that point, the OST might as well not even exist here. Like, you should just have the premium upgrade alone, since it includes the soundtrack, since they're showing the same price. Even the base price without the sale price, it's the same. A music video for Song and Tales of South of Midnight, and the documentary of the director's cut, which that right there, I would think that that could be a cool behind the scenes look here that would warrant that premium edition purchase. Now, of course, we're not scoring yet, but I do think that the premium edition here, considering that it's all bonus material, that it's like if you don't care about that stuff and you just want the base game, you're not missing out on anything with the game with this premium edition. I know over this month we've had other games where we did look at premium editions or premium upgrades, where some of them did include game content, which felt like something that should have just been in the base game, whereas other games would have their premium editions with these kinds of bonus content, the art book, the comic books. I know Dispatch was like that when we looked at that game. But it says, immerse yourself in the macabre and fantastical world of South of Midnight with the premium edition, which includes full game and digital access in English to all of what we just saw above. So that's a cool little thing there, that it gives us those bonus materials. Even if it was like, if it was just if it was just the comic book and soundtrack, or just the director's cut, I feel like that would be worth, or the documentary, that would be worth it. But the fact that it includes all of those plus the art book and stuff, with for a game that artistically does look stunning. We're going into about the game for part one of our review here. From the creators of Contrast and We Happy Few, South of Midnight is a spellbinding third person action adventure game set in the American Deep South. As Hazel, you will explore the mythos and encounter creatures of Southern folklore in a macabre and fantastical world. When disaster strikes her hometown, Hazel is called to become a weaver, a magical mender of broken bonds and spirits. Imbued with these new abilities, Hazel will confront and subdue dangerous creatures, untangle the webs of her own family's shared past, and, if she's lucky, find her way to a place that feels like home. Already, they're just kind of pitching here the kind of touching storytelling that you're looking at. but with a hint at the visuals here where you're pulling a spindle and thread from a magical loom that kind of feeds into this narrative where you are a new type of magic user, where in this world you are a weaver, not just a mage or a spellcaster, but specific, like that is the specific branding of the magic in this game, with movement and combat skills that look satisfying and fluid to use. A dark modern folk tale. When a hurricane rips through Prospero, Hazel is pulled into a southern Gothic world of memory made real and must embark on a journey to rescue her mother and safeguard her hometown. In this folktale from modern times, Hazel will need to reconcile the weight of family history and legacy against her own identity. And the little image portrayal here shows some extra fight scenes and some extra action scenes with extremely large creatures. So we're looking at, the kind of God of War, Kingdom Hearts, Legend of Zelda type large enemies, including a giant woman and a gator growing plants and off an island on its back, which that kind of reminds me of Torterra, or like the like Legends of World Turtles that the folklore is based on, but this time instead of a turtle, it's a giant alligator with a whole like broken chunk out of the top part of its mouth, which I did see they did showcase in one of the trailers where they talked about how a nearby church tried to like bomb the gator, and I imagine that's probably what damaged its face there. Confront mythical creatures, wield an ancient power to restore creatures and uncover the traumas that consume them. Well, that right there is probably one of the leading cases with the gator here. Maybe you're supposed to, like, you are shown fighting it here and running from it in one of the trailers where. Like those are obviously the action scenes and the action sequences for it, but I'm wondering if that is something that you will do since you're supposed to uncover the trauma, like I mentioned, with the gator having its face bombed off, and weaving magic to fight destructive haints, explore diverse regions of the South, and reweave the tears in the grand tapestry. So basically, you're doing a lot of mending, which honestly, I'm kind of getting a little bit of a thematic vibe that we had from Tales of Kanzara Zhao. For anybody that remembers, I did a review of that game back in February, and I did actually purchase and play through a chunk of that where it seemed like a lot of the game's main focus was on mending and reconciling with the spirits, not just defeating them for the sake of having boss fights, but like having to subdue them and quell their anger so that they could move on. Haunting beauty of the Gothic South, discover the lush, decayed county of Prospero and its locals, experience a crafted visual style, touching storytelling, and immersive music inspired by the complex and rich history of the South. Now, that's kind of a, like I said, it does seem to touch on thematic or themes and cultures that we really don't see a lot of in gaming, or at least might not always see the most tasteful approaches for. But it does look like, from what I can see here, we do have quite an intricate portrayal of the characters. Like the character animations and movements and designs, they look good. They look like what I would believe these characters to look like. And this weaving magic, which that we see this particular shot in motion in one of the trailers where they showcase kind of a little cinematic release of what you can expect from the game's visuals. It does look like a very interesting portrayal and dy- and just a fascinating dynamic for how they do the magic as a weaver. Instead of just slinging spells, she is pulling and crafting the threads from the magic spindle that she carries. We do see shots of the combat where we can see. Now, we aren't getting a whole lot of the menu interface in this, but we do see the combat interface with the combat flow. We'll see the flow more in the trailers because this is part two for our screenshots. Part three will be the trailers. And we see different skill icons up here, which I do recall seeing back when I played Diablo 3. Skill icons were laid up in the top like that with their cooldown showing. So it is a little similar thematically to that with your health bar. You see enemy health bar, the enemy is there, and it does seem pretty clear in how everything is shown here. Your skills and magic are shown with like the blue thread that does kind of highlight your location and your hit range and all that. The enemies have like this red glow to them that makes them a little more identifiable, but not such a targeted red glow like you might see in some Legend of Zeldas, where it's like, oh, the big just hit big glowing eye and that's it. No, like the enemy, it's more of the aura kind of like inner burning of that entity that you're fighting against in this like kind of rendered arena. We do see in one of the trailers that when an enemy shows up, you get like encased in this spirit arena kind of space where it closes off the things, which kind of also reminds me of a little bit of Kingdom Hearts, like cinematic or scripted fight sequences where it's like you get locked into, like you wander into an area and you get locked into that little ring until all the enemies are cleared out. So there is some of that going on, it seems. Of course, we do see some skills and the icons. We see them, the icons on screen, and we see the movement in the trailers too. We'll get to those where we see that some of these are like movement skills, while other ones might be more attack skills or finishing skills kind of situation. We do see this giant four-eyed woman up here. I believe some of the information showed her as some other kind of like, I don't want to portray or make any kind of tasteless or off base assumptions, but there were some shots of like some voodoo-esque looking things. I'm wondering if this might be like some kind of spirit practitioner gone like full spirit force kind of thing. We do see some of the movement skills in action in the trailers, and of course, again, here we do see the skills laid out across the top of the screen with fewer skills on screen. So I'm sure you unlock more of them as you progress. We do see a shot of the big Gator Island, which honestly, like the Gator here, I love this idea and this concept. It is just riddled with spears all over. Like this thing has seen combat. People have come after this, and it is still this monstrous creature that just continues to exist and thrive and hunt in its environment. And whatever we have to go with it, I kind of wonder what the overall story is going to be with this. Like, do you actually get to the point of communing with this creature, like maybe removing the spears, doing the whole like lion with a thorn in its paw thing after struggling fighting against it for the entire game or something? If like you eventually get through that fight and realize like, wait, this guy's suffering kind of thing, especially with the description we just read. We do see another situation here. We see some burning red on the ground. I'm betting that that is some kind of AOE area of effect attack that this burning entity is throwing out there. Plenty of this going on. We do see, and now this one we're going to see more of in the trailer, where the catfish seems to be kind of like anybody that's played Legend of Zelda Wind Waker with the King of Red Lions, it seems to serve that similar kind of role where it's a little bit of a mentor, teacher, and ride, like a little bit of a ride from one zone or sequence into another. So I'm thinking that that's probably going to be a factor here, seeing that in, because we do have conversation going on with the creature while of course Hazel's just sitting up here chilling, probably trying to get information out of this fish. And of course, being a giant catfish too, like catfish like that, giant catfish are not entirely uncommon in folklore. Now, I know that this is like deep south, like Louisiana bayou type of folklore, most likely, if we're trying to isolate the region. If I were to make a guess, now again, that's just kind of what the vibe I'm getting here. But could very well be kind of a carryover from what I think. Now, I know it's that not Japan, but I know there's Japanese folklore about catfish that would like vibrate its whiskers and cause earthquakes for like giant spirit fish or something like that. So I'm wondering if there's anything similar to that aspect here. We do see more of this going on. Looks like a spear or movement skill was used. We got thorns all over the place. New magic object is highlighted on the screen. We do see this situation here. There's thorns and beakers and a giant I want to guess maybe a potion book or a like like a magic practitioner's spell book or recipe book of some sort, something that they've used to keep notes in. And I'm wondering if this environment is where the giant woman sequence comes from. Just considering the size of that character and the fact that that character seemed to be tied to magic use of some sort. So I'm wondering if this is like that spirit's laboratory or like magic shop or something like that, or if this is some kind of Alice in Wonderland situation where Hazel has been diminished in size and now has to go through like a massive environment, which I do kind of get those vibes from here. Between the trailers and the shots and the description, I really kind of get a a marshland variant, like a marshland combo of Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland kind of feel to the world, which is kind of cool to see in that regard. We do see a close up of Hazel riding on the fish, just a very concerned look, probably something where she was dealing with some questions. Another one of these creature spawns where you get isolated into an arena to fight the creature. We do see one of the trailers is just a straight up gameplay sequence where we see that. We do see some gorgeous landscape and flowers, like beautifully rendered. I would just say, like, give me some shots of the environment to use as wall art or something like that. It would be incredible to see. We do have another shot of the gator running with the sequence here going on, and a giant guitar player. I think skeleton or decayed spirit person that was playing the guitar. One of the trailers is just this guitar man singing while she has this encounter with them and looking for something. A couple of close-ups. Now these couple of screenshots, I do like that they put these screenshots in here, but considering that these two screenshots don't really show anything outside of what we already have in the trailer, I do wish that, maybe, or three screenshots, multiple screenshots, where they could have just left those out, since one of the trailers here is just straight up this scene that they've portrayed. We do have a bait shop here, which again, it's just one of those things that completely makes sense in the setting. So moving on to part three, we have the trailers for this, which show us some of the characters, some of the animation, the movement, the gameplay. They do show a snippet of the gameplay. Now we're not seeing a lot of the menus, like they're not showing much of any pause screens, but we do see combats, we see the cinematics, we see what looks like the Lard Lad donut from The Simpsons going across the road, the voodoo puppet doll situation going on. And this right here seems to be the inciting incident. A hurricane comes through, knocking her house with her mother in it off of its stilts, because I've seen houses like that where they're elevated houses so that they don't suffer from flood situations. But when those stilts are knocked down and the house is washed away, she ends up getting whisked away into this spirit world. Basically, Hazel's getting isekai'd into this situation where she gets the magic spindle and becomes this weaver to kind of discover the whole situation of magic. We do see what looks like some townspeople going in. She's going in with like a little bit of a dual wielding hook or blade situation that's kind of cool to see. All these kinds of things. Now, I highly recommend going and watching these trailers yourselves too. I know I have them playing on in the background here for this little analysis. Um, but the sequences overall are very much giving the mystery vibes. Like, I'm not quite sure. A lot of these creatures are shown as hostile, but the description that has you explains you mending these spiritual connections. I'm wondering how many of them are actually like hostile, or if a lot of these are just kind of like injured and scared, or suffering spirits. Like that right there, the large spirit woman going and caressing the small, what looked like a smaller spirit or some treasure of theirs, which is kind of interesting to see. And I'm interested to see like what kind of things they do with this magic system in here as a weaver, like that being the branding of it. But that's the launch trailer that we have there. There is also a, what are these other ones called? pre-order trailer where we see more of Hazel's interactions with her mother. A nice little snippet here before the inciting incident, getting caught up in everything going in, legends, secrets. This is clearly what they're trying to pitch to sell with this few minutes of trailer here. And then at the end of this little line here, we have two more trailers. One of them is 4 minutes of footage that is just straight up gameplay. Like it looks like they actually took what appears to be a very early segment of the game, so that is not to spoil too much. Where you have Hazel riding on the catfish, and the catfish is starting to explain things, but then all of a sudden, the catfish sees the gator island in the distance, not even explaining what the gator is. You don't really, Hazel doesn't see the gator until, it's already moving while the catfish is explaining, hey, go to the church and ring the bell. Maybe it'll scare the gator away, and I'll meet you when you're done. And in that process, it shows her traversing the world using her movement skills in that like it looks like a satisfying, nice little movement motif. Right as I explained earlier, getting sealed into this arena as a creature shows up, and it actually shows you in this footage that fight with the creature. Again, I highly recommend checking it out. You get a little bit of the music motif, but what I really want to touch on, I'm going to skip over this part again. Look at these trailers yourselves. It's kind of showcasing, I think, a good example, or just a snippet of why this game was at least nominated and even won a category for the Game of the Year awards. This one right here, the last trailer, is the one that really stuck out to me, where it appears to be it does say in-game footage, so this is likely not anything that you would actually have any gameplay going into, but one of the cinematic cutscenes where you have the guitar man, the skeletal guitar man, plucking away, singing, he's just in he's having a good time. He's vibing. He's doing his own thing before Hazel comes up. And it's a beautiful little bit of now I'm not a musical expert, and please, if I am misrepresenting or portraying this incorrectly, go ahead, please correct me, and I do apologize if I butcher it, but it does seem like I'm getting like a very blues kind of vibe from it, that honestly, if more of the soundtrack has this kind of uh audio appeal to it, I would highly like, I'm considering this kind of a thing for my own experience. If it goes on a big enough sale where I could see myself spending the money to put the time in on this, more so for my budget, because of my own budget and time restraints than anything else, uh, then I would 100% dive onto. I would even just probably buy the soundtrack. Like the soundtrack itself sounds good, which we're gonna dive into that and when we get to the game analysis too. But this right here, we see the man. He has like the one missing eye where even the skin's missing. You can see his skull there. So he's clearly the skeletal spirit person. Being a little, big giant man also kind of leads into being a spirit man in this sense, where she's clearly looking for something, got like this kind of crude, childish drawing with it. But then, of course, it's like, oh, of course, sneaky thing, just sneaking up right behind me when I'm asking about him. Yeah, that's right. The character clearly has that air of a little bit of a modern sass to her, where she's like bringing that attitude and that personality into this land of folklore and magic, which is kind of cool because not everything that's rooted in fantasy and folklore has to be like that high fantasy, uh, verily motif. I do like when they can take that more modern spin on things and really explore that in a different way. So, with part four of our review, we're moving on to the game analysis. The graphics, they do look gorgeous. Now, depending on the strength of your system, maybe toning down some of the graphics would be a thing for performance issues. But the graphical presentation looks good. The characters are well animated. I like their movement. I like the fight sequences. I like the cutscenes. It is definitely one of those story-driven games where you seem to be going. Now, this is going also into gameplay. It seems to be one of those story-driven games, kind of like you see with Telltale's kind of things, but with an actual combat engine and combo and skill-based system to it. So, like you might see with God of War, Bayonetta, Assassin's Creed, but maybe not as intense in combat as those kinds of things, if I were to be making any guesses towards it. But South of Midnight is very well giving us a good audio and a good graphic presentation with a gameplay that seems to focus mostly on the story beats. I guess if I were to make any kind of comparison gameplay wise, I feel like maybe a fantasy spin on something like The Last of Us, where it does appear to be a bit of like a magically driven road trip with action sequences in between story beats. Now, for some people, that might seem like maybe not enough gameplay to the scenes and story, but other people might lean more into that story aspect. Or maybe I'm completely mistaken on that assumption. Again, I'm judging this based on what we are presented with. And the trailers and screenshots do appear. Now, it does say in game footage on some of these trailers. But at the same time, a lot of that in game footage does appear to be cutscenes where you're going from point A to point B to trigger, whatever magic MacGuffin you need to continue the next part of the story. Maybe the boss fights are more intensive, though, like I said, along the lines of that kind of God of War Bayonetta aspect, but not as hardcore to the point of it being like this huge over the top spectacle of combat skills. It just the more maybe more Legend of Zelda in the combat aspect, if I were to make a guess. But while it has the story beats of those other games in how it's designed and presented, at least. That's kind of the idea I get from it, though. Again, this isn't a bad thing. I just feel like that is what is presented. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting if it comes to people trying to figure out like is this a purchase I would want to make. Now finally, like I said, with UI and menus, we didn't see a whole lot of user interface with the menus, but it does seem like the kind of game where you're not intended to spend a lot of time in menus. They're not showcasing or boasting any crafting. It's all about the story and the progression. The most you might have to do with some menus is select what skills you're setting to your hotkeys. With that, we have our pricing here. It is now at the time of this review, the game is on sale for $30 and it is $40 full price. Um, $40 full price. Now I know big AAA games like I would expect from Xbox Game Studios would be 60 plus dollars a lot of cases. The fact that it's $4 under a big publisher like Xbox itself and from a notable developer with Compulsion Games. Now, again, I haven't gone into Compulsion Games history here, but they are not strangers. They do have quite a few things under their belt. They've made quite a few games, several games that have even come out this year, like in their most recent and popular games. Um, but I do feel like $40 might be a little high. $30 feels like more that fair price tag where if I was on the dedicated gaming budget, $30, I would probably snap this up right away. For my own budget and time's sake, I would wait for a bigger sale. Then again, I know I say that with a lot of these reviews, but again, that is very much a personal budget. I do feel like $30 based on the store page looks like a fair price here. Other people may say that yes, like they've played it, the $40 completely fair, or maybe they feel it's a little high for it. The premium edition with those things being an extra 10, yeah, extra $10. Yeah, extra $10 for the premium upgrade or premium edition. No matter how you get the premium upgrade, it's the same price upgrade on it. $10 full price, $7.50 extra for that upgrade, whether you get the edition or the upgrade if you've already got it. The same scaling on it, no matter how you purchase, which I do like that. I hate when games have and I've seen them do this. They did it with some of the 2 point games. Some of the other games had that where you could buy the bundle of things at full price or buy everything separately where you get everything half off and it's a better deal. It's like at that point, just make the full bundle half off as well. But the South of Midnight is keeping that pricing consistent. I do like that they've kept it consistent. And the premium upgrade, if you don't care about soundtracks, art books, comics, like extra materials, that give you that behind the scenes look of the game, then you can completely skip that over. You don't miss any of the gameplay, at least from what we see on the store page here. They do not advertise any gameplay loss if you skip out on the premium upgrade. But even then, I feel like the 750 or even the full $10 price tag for that premium upgrade, I feel like that price tag is worth it. Heck, I would even pay the $10 for the soundtrack if I was, collecting the music soundtracks based on only that last trailer. Like the sound appeal of that last trailer was absolutely enough for me to get into was to appreciate that aspect. I'm not particularly an aficionado of music or even blues in particular, but when I hear a sound that I like, I just like the sound. That's how I roll with that. But like I said, I did say I feel like $40 might be a bit high on it. $30 feels like a fair price on it. Of course, people can disagree with me on that or tell me, hey, no, the $40, like there is a lot to the game. $40 absolutely worth. And if people have that impression from it, especially people who have played it, I would defer my judgment to the ones with that experience. It's just based on what I see. It's like, okay, maybe it's a little on the high part, but I can concede if shown otherwise. And then the premium upgrade, even just the soundtrack, very fair pricing. Um, Again, if it were to go on a bigger sale, I would be more inclined to jump on it just because as a buyer, as a consumer, I do want to try and, get some value for my dollar, even when I feel like the higher price is worth it. Like when I feel the game itself, when the product itself is worth that price, it's more of a matter of how much can I personally justify spending on a thing, and that comes up to every person's individual price and budget. So with that, we have to give this game a score, and this is going to be kind of a hard thing here because again, I don't really have much of anything negative to say here. I know I've given a lot of positive reviews lately, but then again, I do try to find the positive in things, even when it's something that I might not necessarily like. Like, I do not typically jump on games like this. I'm not much on the action adventure kind of game. Um, and when I buy games like these, I usually do wait for those bigger sales, but I want to give it a very fair rating. I feel like I'm giving this one, and I don't want to be unfair with it. I'm going to give it a positive 7 out of 10. And that's not saying that it's bad. There's not much wrong with it. This might be a very personal scale. I feel now again, this might come down to my personal thoughts on the price to the store page's presentation, where the price feels a little on the high side. I feel like maybe $30. If the base price was 30, I'd be more inclined to go that way. Again, people feel free to disagree and correct if you can show or if you believe that there is that much meat to the game. But I love the characters. I love the art. They're very well presented. I do have a little bit of now. I know I made a lot of comparisons to other games where I feel like maybe the boss fights feel a little Legend of Zelda-ish. The in-between segments feel kind of The Last of Us or Telltale Games style. And and based on what we saw with the trailer that just showed like 4 minutes of early game footage, where you get a story beat and then what looked like maybe 5 minutes of gameplay, maybe cut down to 4 minutes if they were speed running the section or something. I don't know how much they didn't really show how much exploration or how much you have to go in the way of collectibles if you want to like gather as much thing, like how much incentive is there to explore the zone, because they really like they did a story beat and then dropped you off at a shore, interrupted with a small fight sequence, and then go to the church and show the bell tower situation. It's like, okay, they just kind of sped right along there. It would be nice if they showed something that incentivized exploration of these gorgeous environments. Um, we do see a lot of the story beats, and if the game is meant to be mostly those story beats, absolutely. I am 100% on board with that. But I feel like if I see these kinds of environments, I want to be assured that there is exploration, that there's value to the exploration of that, like, something for players to find, upgrades, collectibles that they can get along the way. And it doesn't have to be anything like major upgrades that will like break the game or make it easy mode if you find like the epic loot that's hidden away, tucked away in a tiny little corner that you overlook or something. um I also don't know how much it looks like the kind of game that's going to be story driven, where in games like the Telltale and Last of Us kind of thing, um, where narratively it's structured, where you basically go from level to level with story in between. And that, again, that's not a bad design, but I want to know definitively what kind of game it is. Like, is it like those kinds of games where you have some action sequences just kind of sprinkled in between like story beat to story beat, or is there like a more vast exploration? Because I'm getting the vibe of limited exploration, but the presentation looks like it could warrant, or they could have done some massive exploration with how rich and lush the landscapes look. um but maybe that's just a personal taste thing. Maybe if the game, with the game having the price it does, it makes me feel like I want it to have that broader exploration and unlockable and discoverable entity to it, as opposed to just being a storytelling structure interspersed with gameplay. Again, I'm not saying that it's good design or bad design either way. It's just kind of maybe mostly a preferential thing, but I'm giving it 7 out of 10 for that. But again, the premium edition absolutely looks like a fair value. I just feel like the base price might be a bit high unless I am absolutely mistaken about the structure of the game's story. That's my personal thoughts. Of course, everything I said here, purely my opinions. Anybody out there who has differing opinions, or if you have more insight to it, if you've played it, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I welcome discussion. I like to see these kinds of things. I like to see where people's thought processes are. Um, I would completely be down to give this a shot, if the time and budget opens up for that. I know I say that a lot, but I do see especially this month, I feel like the games I've looked at have mostly been some incredible looking projects. And that's one of the things with the gaming industry these days is we have so many amazing looking games. It's impossible to keep up with everything that you would want to look at. And that's a part of the reason that I do these reviews in this structure, where we're looking at the game as it is presented for sale, so that we can kind of expose ourselves to these different ideas in a way that's like, hey, I am interested in these things. And who knows, maybe somebody else is seeing this for the first time who hasn't kept up with Game of the Year. If it wasn't for Game of the Year, I never would have known that this game existed, and I may have never even known that the other games in this month's special episodes existed. So it's just kind of a cool thing to see, where it would be nice to just have that opportunity. And again, maybe the price will drop in like another year or 2 years, and I'll get that chance to get a closer look at it. But at least I do know from the my initial impression of this that it looks good. I just wish there was a more clear depiction on whether the game, like, it looks story driven, but it's priced like an exploration game. And I want that kind of exploration if I'm going to have that kind of a price tag on something.